giving you a vocational leg up on everyone else. Here's our career Sherpa, Julie Bauke.
That's some funky stuff right there. Hot tub time, hot tub. Get in a hot tub. Julie Bauke's here, our career Sherpa from the Bauke Group. That's BAUKE.com. She's a career coach here in Cincinnati. And welcome again, Julie. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you this morning?
I was a little nervous there. I hit the button. I didn't hear anything. And I was stalling to see if you were actually there or not. Well, I thought we were having technical difficulties as well as called.
Are you talking to icky hot tubs or something? I thought
it sounded like hot tub music to me. I don't know. It's like James Brown getting in the hot tub music.
Okay.
Hot tub.
Okay.
So retirement. There's always been the goal. So, man, retiring early. I just saw a story the other day, as a matter of fact, about that. People who are retiring in their 30s. Yeah. I don't know how you do that. How do you retire in your 30s, Julie?
Well, I think first of all you gotta take a look at the word retirement. What's it actually mean? I mean, people who are in their 30s aren't, sitting at home reading the paper and on the golf course. I mean, I think it's what they're probably doing is they've said, I've got enough money. Yeah. Now I'm going to do what I want to do. And that might involve some paid consulting work. It might involve some volunteer work. It's probably some sort of a portfolio, a mixed portfolio.
Okay, but I'm doing some mixed work or just driving Uber or whatever. But there's always and I see that people, I'm retiring early. Where exactly are you getting your health benefits from?
Well, was it 65 you get Medicare?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you pay.
Yeah, I'm not good at math, Julie, but I think you may need a year or two if you retire at 30 to get your benefits at 65.
Yeah, well, you can buy health. I mean, that's what I do as a small business owner. I have my health insurance on the open market, but some people also, their spouse has it. So they can, a lot of times I see couples making decisions. It's like, okay, you're going to get the job that has the health care, and I'm going to do a startup, or I'm going to volunteer. So it's got to be a team decision.
Let me give you some advice here, young lady, about this, okay? Because I know I'm getting to the age now where I know people. Used to be I know people who knew people who retired. Now I'm starting to know people who retire.
I know.
And, it's scary. We're old. But the interesting thing is this, and I've seen this happen a couple times, where one spouse goes, you know what, I'm cashing in my chips. I'm out. I'm done. I'm going to retire. And the other one's a little younger, whatever. It's still working. There is so much tension and animosity between those two. Yeah. Because one is like, I got to work, and he or she is retired. This is so unfair. And then makes the other person get a job. Get a job again because they're working. So if I'm going to be miserable, you're going to be miserable too. That does not work. Well, no. I mean, that takes an awful lot of communication and coordination. And frankly, I mean, concern and for the other people, what the other people want, so the other person's opinion. And but you're right. Healthcare is one of the biggest concerns, and the older you get, the more it's going to be so. So hopefully, all those brilliant people in Washington come up with a great No, they
solution.
won't. They won't do that. But what about retiring early? I mean, is it all as cracked up to be?
Well, it's this. I was reading this article, and I thought back to I met a former client for lunch right before the end of the year, and he was one of those people who traveled constantly, lived a very stressful consulting life, and all he thought about was moving to Florida and retiring. And so he was financially very stable, and so he did it. So he walks into lunch, and I'm thinking I'm going to hear all about it, and he's got his arm in a sling. And I said, what the heck? And he kind of shook his head, and he said, I have learned so much. He said, I went out, I played golf, I played racquetball, I played tennis, because and I hurt myself. And he said, and it was just a great metaphor for sometimes when we wait to do all the things we want to do, a full diet of that isn't what it's cracked up to be. And he said, not only that, he said, we live in he's 60. He said, we live in a community where, we're some of the youngest. And, we're really active. He said, and one thing I have learned, and this has stuck with me more than anything he said, the bill comes due for all the decisions we make in our life. He said, whether it's poor eating, lack of exercise, not saving money, being very overweight. He said, the bill comes smoking. He said, too much drinking. He said, the bill comes due. He said, and when you're surrounded by people who are in their 60s, he said, you see it every day. And he said, so bottom line is I'm going back to work. He said, a full diet of this, it is not what I thought it was going to be. And it is. It's very easy to fantasize about, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to have coffee and sit on the porch and read the paper. And then it's like 8 o'clock, and then now what do I do?
Because you're used to being busy all day, especially if you're going all the time, you just can't throw the switch off. You're gonna drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, and there's factors to consider. First is intellectual. I mean, you can do crossword puzzles. You can, there's things you can do. But even in a job that you don't like, there is, there's some sort of intellectual stimulation. Maybe it's problem solving, dealing with, difficult customers or difficult people around you. So there's problem solving. And so it's really important as you start thinking about retirement, how are you going to keep yourself intellectually healthy? Because there's all kinds of stats on the mental decline of people when they quit working.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be in volunteer work. It doesn't have to be in paid work. And so you have to really think about, how am I going to keep myself intellectually or cognitively healthy? Second is social. We have, even if we don't really care for 80% of our coworkers, we do have people we talk about things with. It could be, what we saw on Netflix, or it could be how so-and-so's driving is crazy.
Right.
But we have that social network that, especially for men, really falls off after we retire. Women do a better job of building those social networks.
Yeah, because guys hate people.
Well, yeah, and then you just think, I don't need anybody. And, you kind of do. Either you're going to drive your spouse crazy, or, you're going to be that crotchety old man muttering to himself sitting on the porch, keeping the neighbor kids' balls when they come in to dig your yard.
I do that now.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And then,
I will never do that. I had neighbors like that. I said, I'm going to be the cool neighbor. I'm still the cool neighbor.
Yeah. So physically also, the sedentary lifestyle, that we lead. There was another article I read this morning that said that adults spend 6.4 hours of their waking hours sedentary. Adolescents, 8.2.
That's crazy.
So, so now you've got aches and pains. You feel like you're going to watch more TV. You're going to get caught up in all those Netflix shows.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have a reason to get up and walk across the parking lot in kind of traditional retirement. And so all three of those factors, cognitive, social, and physical, really contribute to really a decline in our health and our quality of life. And it's just, it's dangerous. But so I guess the gap between what we think it's going to be like and what it's really like is something that I think you've got to think about as you look ahead in your career.
Yeah, and so you're such a convincing story here about what happens when you retire, and really it's not all it's cracked up to be. As you're saying this, I just got a text from Marty Brennaman. He said, you know what? He's changed his mind. He's going to do another 10 years.
I am so glad I could be such a positive influence on Marty.
How about that? You got Marty Brennaman, the Hall of Famer, to change his mind. He said, you know what? The hell with it. I'm coming back for 10 more years.
Yeah, he's probably got all kinds of other stuff
Oh,
to do. He may
busy.
not be
He's
bored
a
yet.
busy man.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, so before you retire, think about how you're going to spend your time. Don't just jump off the cliff and say, I'll figure it out. Because it's really easy to fall into depression. It's really easy to, and then the years just fly. The older you get, the faster they fly anyway. And so you really have to give some thought to what's that going to look like? And yes, talk to your spouse, because if you've got visions of getting in a Winnebago and touring the country, and he or she says ain't happening, you got a problem. You got to figure that out before you're sitting there staring at each other over there.
Yeah, retiring early is not all it's cracked up to be. We all say, man, I should retire right now. And then people who actually do it go, yeah, you know what? In retrospect, maybe I made a mistake here because it hurts my physical, emotional, cognitive health as well. But I guess the thing is, if you're going to do it, just find other stuff to do. I've said that for years, like, okay, let's say tomorrow I said, I'm retiring. And that'd be way too young to retire, but I retire. I would be so busy volunteering, I golf and I got other projects and rehab stuff I like doing, so I do that. I'd fill that void sitting there. The old adage of, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna fish all day. Yeah, listen, you can't fish that much. You can't hit that many golf balls. It's impossible.
Yeah, and I remember years ago.
God, I'd like to try.
Yeah, I spoke down at the Bengals to some of the players. after their practice one day about, how do you start thinking about life after sports? And one guy was like, I'm going to fish. I'm like, how old are you? He's 24. I'm like, okay, you do know the life expectancy of NFL players, like 3.5 years, right? And I think he didn't even make it past a year. Like, first of all, you're not going to have the money to fish all day. But even sometimes, a 20-some-year-old thinks about what would I do? What would I do if I had all day to myself?
Yeah, won the lottery. If I won the lottery,
exactly.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. It's seductive, it's tempting, but it isn't all it's cracked up to be for most.
And I guarantee you, I could put the shout out now from people to call in saying, did you retire early? How do you like it? And 10 out of 10 callers say, I'd do it over again in a heartbeat. I would retire early.
But there are probably people who were thoughtful about how they were going to spend their time. Don't tell me Marty hadn't thought about what he was going to do. In his case, he said, I think he said, was it a year or so? He said, I'm retiring at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And he didn't just wake up day one of retirement and say, all righty, I read the paper. Now what, Amanda? Now what are we going to do?
Right.
He had some thought. He probably had his phone was ringing off the hook. And all of us have that value someplace. We just have to figure out where.
Well, Marty already said he's going to spend a lot of time driving Uber.
Wouldn't that surprise some people?
Would that be awesome?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
A little salty Marty telling you, don't even think about putting your feet up on my back of my chair now.
The banana phone Uber.
Oh, that would be the best right there. Julie Bauke, our career Sherpa here on the Scott Sloan Show, and available for hire at the Bauke Group. That's BAUK, thebaukegroup.com.
Even for Marty, I'm available for hire.
Yeah. Sit down and have coffee with you, tell him what he's going to do with the rest of his life.
That's right.
Yeah.
We could make something out of him.
Oh, my God, yeah. He's going to unretire. He says, there's no way I can retire early. It's too much. Jules, we'll talk next week. Thanks again. Appreciate it. There you go. It's Sloaney. We're about 12 minutes away from news. Yeah, just curious, if you do you know someone, or maybe you retired early, if it's as good as you thought it would be, because the rest of us in the working world always look at it and go, God, can't wait. I know people counting it down. There's actually an app out there. There's probably more than one app, but a friend of mine had it, and she had it on her phone. It literally, she entered the date when she was going to quit, and it was her screen. It would, the minute she turned her phone on, unlock her phone, it'd pop up. It'd be there, like literally a countdown to the second of when she was going to retire. But once you get there, is it really what you thought it would be, especially if you do it early? Sloaney here, 513-749-7000. Back and forth.
To Milford.
Sloaney here. It's News Radio 700 WLW News Update in just about 6 minutes. And at 11:06 today, Mo is here. Mo, give me Mo, give me Mo, give me Mo. Talking about the NFL draft, a little preview tomorrow night, of course, is when it happens. Who the Bengals select, 11th round overall, probably a linebacker, but it's the Bengals. We shall see what happens. Mo to set it all up for you coming up on 700 WLW. At 513-749-7000, Gene in New Richmond on the Scott Sloan Show about retiring early and loving it or hating it. What do you think?
I am loving it.
How old were you when you retired, if you don't mind me asking, Gene?
Well, I'm 65 now, and I retired 17 years ago.
Jesus, what did you do? Were you a bank robber?
Unfortunately, I had to retire because of really bad arthritis.
Okay.
I worked 33 years as an X-ray technologist, and that's a physical job, and I couldn't do it anymore. But luckily, I was married to a retired military man.
Ah, there you go. The military benefits. There's the key. You get the bennies, and so but did you find like yourself when you retired, were too much idle time, or did you fill that void with something?
Absolutely not. I wondered where I ever found time to work. I do a lot of crafts. I do a lot of volunteer work.
Good.
I think it's easier for women. Women have their hands in a lot of different fires, and I really think it's easier for women. Now, my brother up in New York, where I'm from, he retired at 55. He worked for the county for I think he was, he was 55. And what he did immediately was start painting, which he loved, painting houses.
Yeah.
He loved painting houses. He has a lot of sports, but I bet you he would have had a difficult time if he hadn't taken on a part-time job.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. It seems to me if you're going to do it, the logic is don't not have a plan. Have a plan after, as far as day one goes. And I suppose, the first, I even say maybe the first few months, maybe 6 months even. It's like, okay, enjoy yourself for a little bit. Just, sleep in late, get your body clock set to where you want it. And then, okay, now I'm going to start implementing my plan. And for some people, maybe it's 3 months or, a few weeks or whatever.
Right.
You'll know when you're ready, but you got to do something in your spare time. Otherwise, you're not going to make it.
Oh, absolutely. You got to keep those mind cells fired up all the time. Even I find my husband and I find that we do those little puzzles, or if anything, any kind of little challenge, we both do them and see if we got them right. And just a little something on the side to keep the mind working. And we watch the news, unfortunately.
Right.
Which is not that good.
Well, that's not bad. Because if you sit around watching news, and you're definitely going to send yourself to an earlier grave, because it's not good. Yeah, that's why people who are working for a living, they don't have time to pay attention to it. When you're older, you sweat all that stuff, I mean, imagine Willie, how much Fox News he watches now. When he retires, oh, good Lord, his head's going to explode.
Well, I just got off the phone with my husband. I said, I've got to stop watching it so much.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting me depressed.
Don't do it. It's not as bad as they make it. It's ratings and revenue, Gene. Don't forget that, dear.
Yeah, I know.
It's all about ratings and revenue. All right. Well, enjoy yourself. Be well. Thanks for checking in the show this morning at 513-749-7000, 800, the big one, pound 708.